trip number 8. We're going to Rapid City, South Dakota. Right now I'm a third of the way through South Dakota on I-90. Getting 13 miles to the gallon. It's 37 degrees out. Other than going through Chicago, this has been a great trip. It's wide open, flat, straight, easy road. A little bit bumpy, but not too bad. My phone mount broke, so I got one of those ones that clips to the vent, and that's probably where that jiggle's coming from. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I saw somebody asking about getting started hauling RVs and what they need to do to get started. I don't know. One suggestion I would have would be to join a bunch of the RV transporter Facebook groups and observe for a while before you start asking questions. People always ask the same question 100 times a day, but the questions are what's the best company to work for? They're all the same. Some of them might pay an extra 10 cents a mile, but their pull-out fee is more expensive, and then when I worked for the first company, they didn't have a load board, so you just kind of called and said, what do you have? And they're like, well, we got one going here. And you're like, I don't want to go there. You got one somewhere else? No, that's the only one we got. So the company I'm at now has a load board. It's nice. You can see what's available and kind of plan out your week. But the easiest answer is you just go on to Google and Google RV transport jobs, and there'll be 20 different companies. Most of them are based out of Indiana, Goshen and Elkhart. There's a couple out west. I'm not really sure how big they are. It's just other divisions of the same manufacturers. Like Forest River has a plant out in Oregon or something like that, so they'll have people haul from there, which is strange because we still haul campers to Oregon, so I don't know why. Maybe they just make certain models at that factory. I'm not really sure, but most of it's going to be based out of Indiana. That's where the bigger companies are. That's where a lot of the work comes from. But yeah, so that's it. As far as every company has a different list of equipment they want you to have, different trucks or whatever. I know that some guys pull with half-ton trucks, but you're not going to last long doing that. You're going to beat the crap out of your truck, and you can only pull little campers, so you're going to be limited. I mean, this is a small camper. The actual weight is like 6,700 pounds, and the GVW on it's maybe 8,000 or something like that, and I'm getting 12 miles to the gallon. Now I got 342 gears. If you got higher gears, you'll do better, but it's still, with a half ton, you're gonna kill the thing, and then you're only gas, so you're gonna have a hard time getting fuel. So it's just, if you got a half ton, forget it. Just buy a 3/4 ton or bigger. And then they all have different hitch requirements. You got to have this, you got to have that, whatever. The company that I work for, they're just now coming out with, you have to have a weight distribution hitch if you're pulling a travel trailer over 26 feet or something like that. Weight distribution hitches, you can get them cheap, a couple $100. The one I bought was almost $500. It's an Anderson, and the reason I bought that one is it's more adjustable. If you look up how weight distribution hitches attach to the trailer, a lot of times there'll be something in the way. The breakaway cable box for the brakes, it'll be on the arm, and you can't get your clamp on there for the weight distribution hitch. While the Anderson is just a chain, so you can get extensions, so you can move the thing back further out of the way. But it was almost $500, so you got to kind of decide what you want to deal with. A lot of the guys are bitching about it, but the funny thing is, like, the guys that have always run a weight distribution hitch, they go in and they're like, hey, I always run one no matter what. It's the greatest thing ever. And the guys that bitch about it have never run one. So I'm anxious for mine to come in. I had to order it, but I want to see what the difference is, because when I get passed by a semi-truck, the draft of the truck pulls me into the truck. So if I'm not paying attention and watching the mirror, all of a sudden I'm getting sucked towards the center of the lane there, towards the white lines. So it's a little bit unnerving. Supposedly the sway control and weight distribution hitches help with that, and we'll see. But so that's about it. If you're thinking about getting into hauling RVs, it's not a bad gig. You got to have the drive. I mean, I'll go into how much money you can make some other time, but I enjoy doing it. I'll keep doing it for a while for sure. So I'm on my way back to the yard. This is somewhere in South Dakota, about halfway. 50 miles an hour, slowing down. Before these roads get real bad again, I figured I'd talk about what truck you should buy if you want to haul RVs. There's as many opinions as there are people pulling trailers, but the bottom line is it doesn't matter. Diesel in a crew cab would be what I would recommend. Ford, Chevy, or Dodge, it doesn't matter. They're all decent. There's guys with over 1 million miles on all of them. Now there's guys with 1 million miles on the 6-liter Ford, and that's a notoriously terrible diesel. They all have advantages and disadvantages, but bottom line is it just doesn't matter. So everybody's going to have something they want, and they're going to get that, and that's it. The only thing I would shy against is the mega cab Dodge, and that's just because it lowers the tow rating. It'd be nice to have the room, and I can't remember what the numbers were, so you'd have to check. But I mean, some of these trailers can get up to 20,000 pounds, 19,000 pounds. You don't want to be limited. But with that being said, I don't haul any fifth wheels. I'm actually thinking about getting a slide-in truck camper so I can have somewhere nice to sleep. But so it doesn't really matter. If you're going to do fifth wheels, I would get a long bed so you don't have to get the slider hitch. And then when you haul a regular travel trailer, they pull nicer because you got a longer wheelbase, and you got more room for a fuel tank and all that stuff. I know there's a few guys that haul with gas trucks. The trucks will last. It's fine, but the problem is, there's a few problems. One, the fuel mileage goes to just absolute crap. You'll be 5-6 miles per gallon loaded, and then it's harder to get fuel because you can't, every time I get fuel, I go to where the semi trucks go, so it's easy. I pull in, pump, and then I go. Well, there isn't always a nice pull through for the gas pumps, so that's something you'd have to really be careful with. You could do it, but it's just more difficult. You're going to have to be careful. Some of the advantages to gas, though, is it's cheaper. Fuel's cheaper. The truck's cheaper. Maintenance is cheaper. I mean, this truck, I use 3 gallons of oil. What is a gas? Even the big V8s, 7 quarts maybe at most, 6, 7. That's nothing. So there's and you don't have to do fuel filters every 15,000 miles on a gas truck. So the maintenance is a lot cheaper. But for me, it was kind of a simple. It wasn't even a real decision. It was just, you buy the fucking diesel and be done with it. The reason I bought a Ram, there's a few reasons. When I started doing this, I wasn't sure that I wanted to continue doing it. I didn't know how I'd like it. I'd never done anything like this. Having done it for a couple months now, I love it. This is great. But at the time, I wasn't sure. So I wanted a truck that I wouldn't mind driving to work every day if this didn't work out, if I had to go back to a regular 9 to 5. Let me back up a little bit. Before I had a 2016 Tacoma TRD off-road. We go off-road all the time. And it was a great truck. A little bit limited with the independent front suspension off-road. If you know anything about off-roading, solid axle is the only way to go. All my Jeeps prior to the Tacoma were way better off-road, but it was pretty good. And I figured if I'm going to go back to not hauling trailers and go back to doing off-road stuff, it has to be a solid axle. So the Chevy was out. So it was the Ford and the Ram. I went and I actually test drove the Chevy, and it was okay. It still had the spongy brakes. The last time I drove a Chevy was like late 90s, and they had spongy brakes. And I figured, come on, they had to have fixed that by now. Nope. I drove a 2018, brand new, 0 miles on it, and the thing still had spongy brakes. I don't know what GM does with their trucks, but that's something you get used to. But other than that, it was a nice truck. So then I went over. The dealer was a Chevy dealer, and then right next to it was a Ford dealer. So I went and drove the Ford. And the Ford was nice. There was, plenty of power, all that stuff. And the biggest reason that I didn't get the Ford, it wasn't as comfortable. Like the way I like to drive, I put my elbow on the windowsill and then hold the steering wheel. Well, the Ford, it was either too high or too low. I can't remember, but it had my elbow at a weird angle. There was that, and then the lockout hubs. It's not the 80s anymore, Ford. It's time to get freaking auto hubs. Really, seriously. I mean, yeah, they're sure you can replace the parts and everything like that, but you're talking that's a 150,000 mile part. Like, it doesn't. You're not saving anything by doing that. You're just kind of making it more difficult. Especially today. Perfect example. I got up. It was 37, a little bit windy, but it wasn't bad, and it was dry. Everything was nice. I get 20 miles down the road, and there's 4 inches of snow on the road. So now I got to stop on the side of the freaking road and lock my hubs. Like, that's ridiculous. I shouldn't have to do that. So that's why the Ford was out. And then I went and test drove the Ram, and everything was super comfortable. Everything was where I wanted it to be. So this is the one I bought. And it really has nothing to do with the engine. And I know Ram has a history of crap transmissions, but the 68 RFE in this truck, there's guys with over 500,000 miles on a stock transmission, so I'm really not concerned. And so what? Okay, I got to drop $4,000 on new training. It's not going to be for a long time, so I'm not worried about it. The other suggestion I would make is don't buy a new truck, especially if you don't know if you're going to like it or not. Yeah, I mean, I saved $15,000 buying this. It's a 2017, had 13,000 miles on it. I saved $15,000. I should have probably bought an older truck, but when I bought my first new car in 2013, I got spoiled. So now I really don't want to own a car without heated seats and backup camera and all that stuff. All this thing's got a heated steering wheel and cooled seats. So there's a lot of that's just me being a princess, but other than that, I mean that's really it. Just make sure you can afford what you're buying. If you don't end up liking it, make sure you can afford it when you go back to your other job. I mean, there's decent money to be made hauling RVs. You got to be careful. So you can get in over your head if you're not careful, for sure. But definitely a crew cab though, because you'll need the room. Most guys sleep back there. They set up a little bed and sleep back there. I sleep in the passenger seat. I lay it all the way back and rack out over there. But so that's an option. But some guys sleep back there. So that's really all I got. If just buy a truck. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what, if you're working at a freaking Ford dealership and you work on the Ford trucks, buy a damn Ford. You know how to work on it. But other than that, it doesn't matter. If you're not already committed to one brand, go test drive them all. See what you like. See what's the most comfortable, because that's the most important thing, is that it's comfortable. If I would have gotten the Ram and it was terrible, I would have went and bought the Ford. Even though the elbow thing was messed up, I would have figured something else out, because the solid axle was important. Because again, if I wasn't going to do this, I'd go back to off-roading, and I want that solid axle. So, and the Ford has the one I drove had the off-road package, so it already had a locker in the back. I wouldn't have had to buy that. For this truck, if I went to off-roading, I would have to. But that's that doesn't matter now because I'm not taking this thing off-road. I'm doing this too much. I got a razor to play in the mud with, rocks or whatever. But so yeah, that's four-wheel drive. That's the other one. But I would get a four-wheel drive. You don't have to. You save a couple bucks, a year in gas. But the resale value's crap. I mean, the resale value is going to be crap anyway. I wouldn't really count that as something to worry about because by the time I trade this truck in, it's going to be over 500,000 miles. It ain't going to be worth shit. Maybe 12 grand at most. But four-wheel drive is going to be worth a little bit more than two-wheel drive. Somebody might consider buying it because it's four-wheel drive and they're going to beat it up, whatever, I don't know. But mostly just because you never know what the weather's going to do. I checked the weather for this trip before I left, and I should have made it clear, no problem, no snow. But it came in sooner than they talked about because weather people are terrible at their jobs. So yeah, diesel four-wheel drive crew cab. Go buy a truck. All RVs. Easy as that. We're at a dead stop now, I guess, right up there at the bridge. I don't know if you can see that over there, probably not. Some truck jackknifed. So that's really gonna screw up my time, but what are you gonna do? I'm tempted to walk up there and see how bad it is, if there's a chance we can get around or something. I don't know. My truck's back there somewhere. And this dude, I guess we're gonna try some. He's sketchy about hooking up. They're trying to pull back and just get him off the road because there's no way around this. The only other option would be to go down the shoulder. But that's not going to be really easy either because everybody's going to be piled up on the outside and I don't want to get stuck going the wrong way. Like this pretty much on and off all day. There was some sections where I was able to do the speed limit, but not very many. It's a good day. Definitely not doing as many miles as I was hoping, but that's okay. I-90 going through, coming up to Chicago. Already started the Illinois toll madness. Illinois is strange. They you don't just get a ticket and then pay at the end. They have toll booths every frickin' 10 miles or whatever. I don't know why they do that, but maybe because there's so many exits. I don't know. It's weird, but getting 23.1 miles per gallon. It's 35 out. All the ice from South Dakota and Minnesota is melting off the truck. It was a good trip. South Dakota is really nice. As soon as you cross the Missouri River, it gets really, it looks like sand dunes with scrub grass on it. That's pretty neat. But I should be back to the yard in a couple hours, 2.5 maybe, and then off to the next one.